October 29, 1890, the Pittsburgh Press, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Under public gaze, the body of the unknown suicide at the morgue. Throngs of people present, but the remains have not yet been identified. In the dead room at the morgue there are 3 bodies. One was killed on the railroad, another died in a charitable institution, and these have been identified. The third is the body of the young woman who was taken last night from the Allegheny River. The body still lies unidentified, and the mystery is still unsolved. During the forenoon, there were nearly 400 people who visited the morgue for the purpose of seeing the mysterious suicide. All the indications seem to indicate it must have been a suicide, although the dead girl left no word of writing to tell the cause, and seems to have been specially careful to dress in unmarked clothing to prevent identification. Even in death, there seems to be an expression of scorn upon the features of the girl, as if she mocked the attempt of the morbidly curious public to penetrate her secret. All the morning, the stream of the curious kept pouring into the morgue. Sometimes there would be a squad of 3 or 4, sometimes but 1. Nearly all were men. Each and every visitor was received, taken into the presence of the dead by Undertaker Smith, and the sheet enveloping the corpse turned down from the head, disclosing the swollen features. On the forehead, a slight, livid mark is visible, but is said to be no evidence of violence, as it must have been received after death, while the body was floating among the driftwood. Most of the visitors stand and gaze upon the face a moment and then turn away. Some speculate on the nationality of the girl, whether she be German, Irish, or Polish. Some wonder what could have been the cause that led such a stolid and healthy-looking girl to despair of life. No one as yet has been able to tell the girl's name or residence. One of the visitors, as he entered, remarked upon a curious dream he had last night in which he saw a drowned girl, her face and garments dripping, as if just drawn from the river, lying upon the table of the morgue. But his dream did not reveal to him anything regarding the identity or misery of the victim. The legal inquest upon the body was begun about noon today, but owing to the mystery still surrounding the case and the unfinished state of the investigations that have been instituted, there was but little testimony taken. The case was continued until tomorrow morning. April 11, 1907. Ithaca Chronicle and Democrat, Ithaca, New York. Died because lunch was cold. Rochester, New York, April 10. Charles F. Barton, 25 years old, committed suicide by taking carbolic acid. He conducted a bicycle repair shop and was dissatisfied because he lived so far from work that he had to eat a cold lunch. He wanted to give up his business and go to farming, but his wife and father opposed him. Brooding over this matter caused his suicide. June 17, 1908, The Evening News, San Jose, California. Couple died smiling with pistol balls in heads. Man and woman fulfill their death pact, were unable to marry for 2 years. Wilkes-Barre, June 17. About to separate, unable to marry for 2 years, and deeply in love with each other, Annie Cares of Kingston and Sebastian Gaija of this city fulfilled a death pact, leaving a pathetic note saying there was nothing else for them to do. They had arranged it all deliberately. Gaija had purchased a revolver, and this morning, while Mrs. Anna Benedict, the girl's father, was away, they attired themselves in their best clothes as for a wedding, pinned bridal roses on their breasts, and after writing a letter with 2 notes of farewell and final directions, calmly met death together, smiling. The young girl lay upon a bed on which she had put the best bedclothes in the house, and Gaija evidently shot her in the left temple, and a moment later killed himself in the same way. Their last act was to throw their arms around each other, and in that position, still smiling, and with glassy eyes fixed upon each other, the mother found them hours later. The girl was married a year ago to Michael Kerr, who deserted her. 3 months ago, she met young Gaija, who had been chosen to look after the collection of a small fortune recently left to Mrs. Benedict by a relative. A week ago, the couple resolved that the girl should get a divorce and they should wed, though they would have to leave their church. Then they learned it would take at least 2 years to procure a divorce. And finally, Mrs. Benedict decided to take her daughter to Europe. The death pact followed. In the girl's farewell letter was the distinctly feminine appeal that nothing she had when married should be placed upon her. They will be buried together. December 3, 1908, Ithaca Chronicle and Democrat, Ithaca, New York. Mrs. Cowper in suicide compact. Followed James H. Wallach, who killed himself. Body to be cremated today. Letter carefully settles all her affairs and directs disposal of her ashes. She delayed shooting herself so that lawyer could enjoy his vacation. Peculiar coincidences in details of her death and that of her friend. New York, December 3rd. The ashes of Mrs. Eleanor Marin Cowper, who shot herself in the St. Regis Hotel, will be sent to Middletown, New York, as soon as the body of the playwright and actress is cremated in Hoboken today. A simple service over the body was held last night. That a suicide compact existed between the beautiful woman and James H. Wallach, the actor-manager, who shot himself at the Commercial Hotel in Middletown on May 1st, has just become known. From Mrs. Cowper's letters, in the hands of her attorney, Judge H. B. Royce of Middletown, it is evident that they decided as long as a year ago to end their lives. Instead of killing herself at the same time as Mr. Wallach, Mrs. Cowper decided to attend Mr. Wallach's burial and later to take her own life. She conducted the only services at his grave, reading some original verses. Then Mrs. Cowper proceeded to put her affairs in shape for her death. She made complete arrangements for her cremation and burial in a remarkable letter to her attorney, in part as follows. My dear Judge Royce, will you come to New York as soon as you get this? I intend to go into the big sleep, and unless the shot is heard, I think you can get here before anyone knows. I have done all I could to spare you trouble. I've engaged my box and find I can dress myself, and only need to be lifted in. The new process of electric cremation takes only about 40 minutes, and the whole thing can be over in 24 hours or less. I will leave the key of my strongbox in the safe here, so you can get the contents. There will be $200 or $300 and other things. When you get the can with my ashes, I want you to open it and place them directly in the ground. It will only need a small bit of turf removed and a little digging. I had planned this for November 24, but that might spoil your Thanksgiving, so I've waited. But I don't want to spend the winter in a tin box on a shelf. A peculiar coincidence was the apparent way in which she followed in practically every little detail the methods adopted by James H. Wallach in going to his death. Wallach put a bullet into his brain. So did Mrs. Cowper. Both left notes for H. B. Royce, their attorney, and similar notes to the coroner. Both left instructions to have their bodies cremated. Wallach and Mrs. Cowper had known each other for 9 years. He was 66 years old at the time of his death. She was born in 1867. Wallach's wife died 7 years ago, and after that Mr. and Mrs. Cowper went to live with him on his farm in Middletown. There her husband, Archibald Cowper, an actor, died. Wallach and Mrs. Cowper collaborated in playwriting. He backed up their work with money to produce their plays and lost it. Then followed his suicide.